Hey, Fran.
Hi, Christy.
So good to be with you talking about AI chatbots and coaching today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. An absolute pleasure being here.
You're so far ahead of the game. And I remember when you were first starting to study AI, and I had barely even heard of it. I think now everybody in the world has heard of it and is probably using ChatGPT and other stuff. But I'd love to hear what got you interested in looking at coaching and AI chatbots in the first place.
So, Christy, I've been coaching for about 5 years and I was studying coaching, and then I decided to do a master degree on coaching, mentoring, and leadership. And when it came to my um, capstone project, I was thinking, what can I do that's new and interesting and sort of revolutionary? And then I started looking at what's happening in the world. And after COVID, with the digital transformation and everybody going online and with Zoom, coaches are more comfortable with technology. I noticed that people started writing papers and doing research on AI coach bots. And I thought this is very interesting because I've always been interested in technology and, of course, coaching. And then I wanted to see how this could work, what the potential dangers are, what the potential benefits could be. And then I thought, wow, this is a perfect topic for my research project.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And I remember like you interviewed me as one of the participants in your research and even the questions you asked are like, "Oh, I wasn't really thinking about that stuff yet." So I'd love to hear what do you feel are the current capabilities with AI as far as coaching?
Oh, that is a quite a broad question, Christy. So at the moment, the technology is developing so fast, so very fast that it's even my paper. I think I was reading through it again. I was thinking, these things are almost general knowledge now when it was quite new when I was studying and when we were doing the research. So the capabilities are changing all the time. At the moment, I would say most of the coaching is done text with texting, writing. But of course, there are coach bots out there that are avatars, they are video, voice, and it's changing quite a lot as it's moving forward.
Yeah, fascinating. And when you did your research with the coaches, were they worried about their jobs being taken away by AI, or did you find that they're more interested in being a human, or what came out from what you studied?
So that's a very interesting question, Christine. Um, the coaches that I interviewed, they were mixed viewpoints. Some are saying it will create more job opportunities. One of the coaches actually mentioned that a contract was cancelled. One of these contracts were cancelled because they decided to replace him with technology, with AI coach bots. So it was very mixed. And if I may add, in my research, this was something that in other industries, of course, was a big concern for many as well, that they might lose their jobs because of AI.
Yeah, it's such an interesting question, the difference between text and having something that looks almost human, which I don't know, might feel a little weird. Like what we do is so human. What concerns me is the ICF is getting more and more language focused in their assessment process. And, I think as coach educators, we still have a fair amount of leeway in what we can teach beyond the core competencies. So we can still teach very somatically. We can teach people to match and mirror body movements, to pick up on metaphors that might be only through the body and not spoken out loud. But the ICF assessment process is still very language based. When you look at their 8 core competencies and what they're looking at on the exam, it's so much about what did the coach say. And that concerns me given that almost 90% of communication is nonverbal. Chatbots can already ask. They don't say, they don't rephrase their question 3 times. They don't make sort of like the mistakes in quotes that a human would make. And so it is a really interesting question. What can these chatbots do if the coaching industry is moving toward more language based instead of more of the fullness of the human experience?
Oh, you've said so much that I could talk for hours on just that, that one sentence. The first thing you said really got me was when you said they can um, ask the perfect questions. They can be sort of almost human-like. And that was one of the concerns, is this anthropomorphic danger was something that I picked up in my research, where humans actually see the computer as another human, or the object or the animal or whatever it might be. So there's this element that how they connect with this and how they actually see the AI coach bot. That's the first part of what you said. And then you said about the exact wording, that it can pick up the exact wording. And there have been studies where exactly that. There was one study in 2022 where the coach bot actually could follow the GROW model, the GROW coaching model, and tick every single box exactly right. And that's one of the biggest surprises that came from my research, is that you have to go in neutral and open-minded. But of course, being human and not being a computer, I did have some idea, and I thought, possibly the biggest concern would be safety and security. That would be the biggest theme that comes up from my research. But in fact, the biggest theme was the human element, the human touch, how important that is in the coaching environment. So yes, if it ticks boxes, it can tick all those boxes in terms of asking open questions, choosing the almost perfect question to fit in. But a lot of our coaching, as coaches, we know sometimes the perfect question is not what the client needs.
Yeah. And I love your reference to the GROW model because it's such a common model when you need to kind of roll out coaching at scale. And so I would see companies maybe wanting to add AI coach bots to, if they're going to purchase, large scale democratizing coaching across their company, that might save them money in that way. But it's gonna, at least for now, it seems like it's very much at kind of the ACC level of coaching. Like I remember, I used to have a little cheat sheet that I printed out, and it was just 12 questions, and it was basically the GROW model, very simple, basic coaching, and I could just kind of hand it to any of my kids' friends who came in the house, or I'd be like, "Hey, hey, Zoe, I'm trying to think through this problem. Can you ask me the questions on this sheet?" Which is now what you could do with AI. I mean, this is like 10 years ago. So you have this little kid being like, "What do you want to take away from today's session?" And then I was like, "Well, I'm thinking through this. What's important to you about that? How will you know when you got there?" And so they'd ask me all these kind of rote questions, and it was very helpful. But it's very different from working with a trained coach who's going to pick up on, like, did I notice some hesitation, or your eyes are glistening a little bit? What's happening with that shoulder? Just those kinds of somatic, human, emotional questions. I used ChatGPT to coach me through something a couple months ago, and it was so frustrating. I was like, I really want to think through this big topic, and it's like, okay, tell me what it's going to be like in 5 years. Da, da, da. And I'm like, well, I wasn't really thinking 5 years, but okay. So I wrote a couple things, and then I was just barely starting to get into that dream state where I'm like, okay, yeah, what do I really want? And its next question was, what small step can you take in the next 24 hours? You missed me completely. Like, how could you ask me that question? I'm not ready to take action on something that I'm still thinking through. And that's the kind of thing that we would, of course, teach a coach. Like, don't jump ahead to action when your client needs a lot of silence and maybe some go down a few false paths that don't lead anywhere, but they're worth exploring. You could have 5 different dream lives that you imagine before you actually know which one you want to pursue. So that was just very interesting. Like, this thing really missed me. Of course, humans can miss us too. They could just be in their own imagination of what they think our metaphor is about or something else and go off on their own tangent. Who knows? Your thoughts?
Something you said something. I wouldn't say hit the nail on the head, but you said something there was the silence. Because ChatGPT or whichever coach bot, they're not trained for the silence. They will come with the next, the next, the next. And as coaches, silence is such a powerful tool. And as you were saying, you were still thinking and dreaming. A human coach feel that, would see that, even if it was on the telephone and there was no visual. You can feel it. You can feel the person is still processing and in a thought process. And that's, to me, something that's very valuable in coaching is to allow that space, to allow the client that space to actually process their thoughts, to give them that time to think and to work it out. And as you said also about the perfect question, maybe it's not the perfect question. Sometimes they need to go on the wrong path, and even going on the, wouldn't like to say wrong, but not the ideal path. They will still pick up something valuable along the way.
One of my favorite metaphors in coaching, I have another labyrinth back there. I have one here. And the whole point of the labyrinth, I have these little um, pathway balls that I'm just constantly doing this. There's no there's no jump to the center method when you're walking a labyrinth. It's a long journey with lots of twists and turns. And I think that happens in life and it happens in a coaching session. Like, you might even think you can imagine what the center might be like. Who knows? Or not. But you're going to find a lot of gifts and challenges as you go on the twists and turns. And I don't know that, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, who knows? I don't want to limit the human imagination behind what's possible with technology. It's hard to believe that a computer could just give you the spaciousness to explore and dream as much as you want and make plenty of mistakes, if you want to call them that, or twists and turns along the way.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's it, where it comes in, and the research also, the conclusions I came to, basically that it depends how the coach wants to coach and how the client wants to be coached and what resonates, because some people don't want any technology near their coaching session, and that's okay. And others want to actively incorporate it, and that's also okay. And I think if they incorporate it, to be very aware of the pitfalls, the dangers, as well as the benefits, of course, and also how they can protect themselves and their clients, and really do their research and stick to the guidelines. Like ICF have a guideline in their coaching frameworks and standards that they published at the end of last year. And of course, your legislative guidelines that you have. So I think that is very important, and there's no right or wrong. So if the client and the coach together feel that let's look for the center of the labyrinth and we go the long way, and that's perfectly okay. But if the client says, no, I want to cut off all this and just go straight to the center, if it's beneficial for them, then why
Yeah, I
not?
mean, I'm just thinking about my own life right now. Like today, I have 6 hours of sitting here in front of this screen, and it's like, that's a lot of hours to be looking at a screen, and that's a lot of technology in my day. And I'm taking off tomorrow and Monday, and I have a 4-day weekend, and I don't intend to have my phone anywhere near me, and I'm going to go outside, walk through the woods, hopefully see a few horses. Actually, it's going to be really hot, so I'll probably spend a lot of time in the swimming pool or something, but whatever it is, it's going to be far from technology. But it doesn't need to be either one or the other. I mean, today can be tech day and tomorrow can be nature day, and I can have a mix, hopefully a much better mix. Most of the days get outside every day. So yeah, there could be times. And I'm guessing you're seeing coaches using kind of a hybrid approach. Like maybe they're not bringing a lot of tech into their human sessions, but maybe they supplement with notes or questions in between or something else. What are you seeing?
That's a good way of looking at it, because yes, there are coaches that are augmenting their services with AI, and I think more the AI tools than the actual AI coach bots. There are
Right.
AI coach bot software where you can actually train your own coach bot to step in for you, that thinks, doesn't think.
It
Theoretically
appears to
thinks
think.
like you do. That will go, have this, you train it with your type of questions and how you are as a coach and how you appear. So that exists, and it's starting to take, people are starting to leverage that, but more so the AI tools. I think people are using a lot of AI tools, note taking, summaries. Um, and I think it also depends on the comfort level. In terms of security and safety and confidentiality, because confidentiality is one of the big, big things in coaching. Personally, I'm still not 100% convinced about the confidentiality of using these systems, especially on huge big platforms or on depending on the software. So to look at the security, privacy policies, I think is very, very important.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that's similar to some other things. Like for example, I used to do a lot of coaching within this one company, and I had like 20 clients within the exact same company. And and then I started asking a few questions because I always would share notes with a client, and I was using their work email addresses to share notes, and then found out at some point that they could all access one another's emails.
Oh no.
Like everything, they had this common server. So shocked. I'm like, what? So then I started using people's private email, but then like even Gmail has different settings where it can be tricky to share with someone who doesn't have a Gmail account. There's, yeah, confidentiality is tricky no matter what tech you're using, but certainly taking a good look at it and seeing who can access and who's learning what about whose personal information is key. Do you have any tips about that for AI?
Oh, I think there, once again, to look at the privacy and security policies of whatever software it is or whatever technology is being used. Um, and then again, I think it's also a matter of how comfortable are you personally, because how is that data being used? Yes, maybe they're not sending it out in a format where people can read, oh, Christy said X, Y, and Z at this time. But are they training their AI with what you said? And you, as Christy, could never pinpoint that. It would never come back to, oh, this AI learned from me, from what I said. So I think it's very nuanced, and the person really has to look into it and maybe also start looking at the watchdogs, who is monitoring, what software is recommended, what is not recommended, um, and how
Yeah, I
far are
hear a
you.
lot of personal choice in there too, because some coaches might be like, I would love my way of thinking to make its way widely into the world. Whereas another coach might be like, this is my intellectual property. This is my source of income. I need to make sure this is attributed to me. So could have a varied number of values involved in your own privacy questions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the other thing is the accuracy or the actual truths that the AI gives out, um, or recommends or says or asks, or whatever you want to call it. It's not necessarily factual, not necessarily the right thing. And on whose moral compass is it based? What are the biases? There are so many questions. You could just open this can of worms and it can go on and on. And that's why I think many coaches are leaning towards training their own coach bot, investing in software where they can actually train their own coach bot, um, in their way of thinking and their way of coaching.
That makes a lot of sense. Where, yeah, because even when I train coaches, and we've got a whole workbook with sample questions and cheat sheets and things, but I wrote it, so none of our students are going to be taking my questions. I might ask a question like, what does universal love have to say about this situation? I don't know if there's any other coach in my system that would ask that question in that way. Um, but what I do have happen is, I'll have a client and they tell me in between sessions, like, I think, what would Christy ask me? And it's almost like they're having these fake little conversations with me in their head between sessions. I might see them once a month and they're like, I talked to you 20 times in my head within this situation. I'm like, I could hear Christy's voice asking me, like, what's wanting to emerge now, or how are you feeling in your body as you're, and they know the kinds of questions that I would ask them as they go through their day, which could be very different from what any other coach would be asking them.
That's quite interesting, Christy, because if you had to, for example, decide to use a hybrid approach where you have a Christy coach bot and the client in between sessions would like to bounce this off the Christy coach bot, that would be a scenario where this could 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 work, could be implemented. But as I said before, I think it's a very personal thing. It's what the coach is comfortable with and what the client is comfortable with. And I always like to compare it to training, for example, because it's something people can relate to in nowadays. When they want to train, say, for example, for a language, do a language, they can choose a pre-recorded session. They could choose a live online session. They could choose a live in-person session. They could choose a hybrid where you do partly recorded, partly with the person. And I see this is how it will work with AI and coaching, AI coach bots and coaching. The client and the coach will decide what formula, if I may call it, like that. I think they will decide which formula is most suited for them. So you will have some clients that will only work with a human, nothing else, and some coaches will say, I'm not involving any tech except maybe Zoom or the digital coaching, but that's where it stops. And then you might have these that say, oh no, I'd like to have a coach but Christy in between sessions that's going to think and ask me like Christy. And that's where I see it going, at least for the near future. I don't know what future generations, because they might see it totally differently, might evolve.
Mhm. They might all be out coaching with horses. Like, I'm so interested in that, like how a horse can pick up on like exactly how you're feeling in a way even a human can't, and the way a horse responds to you will tell you a lot about yourself. Like that would be the opposite, but there's just
Yeah,
so much richness in the both and. It'll be interesting.
exactly.
What are your thoughts about what kind of harm could be caused, if any? I mean, if we wanted to address people's fears about AI.
Ooh, I've touched on some of them, was the inaccuracies and the errors, and safety and security was another, anthropomorphic dangers that could exist. And for me, I think this one is not getting the attention it deserves,
Hmm.
personally. Of course, that's my personal opinion. Somebody else might disagree with me, but we don't hear about it so often. But yet, in our nature, it's our nature to empathize. If you just look at some movies, if you look at, for example, the movie Wall-E, everybody was empathizing with this little robot. You know it's not real, it's just a cartoon robot, but you were feeling with it, empathizing with it. It's not human. And I think those dangers exist with the AI coach bots, where the lines get blurred, and then they're not sure. Oh, they are sure, but they forget. They forget this is a machine, and they start seeing it as another human being.
Maybe we could see our fellow human beings more as human beings. Like, it's a
That,
shame to waste our empathy on machines when there's so many of us out there who could use a little extra love and companionship in our day.
oh, absolutely. And I was thinking about this yesterday, Christy, when I was just thinking on LinkedIn, for example, everybody is perfect. They don't make mistakes. I am this, this, and this. I've got this, this, and this qualification. I've done X, Y, and Z. But this is what connects us. It's like when I say something, I mispronounce something, and oh, sorry, I mispronounced it. It's just part of me. It would be so boring if I was like perfect, pronounce everything perfect. It just, that's
Yeah.
lacking.
Our weaknesses is what makes us lovable, and the not knowing and the being with someone in their confusion or searching or longing. Because we do, as humans, feel those things. We feel longing, we feel grief. And a machine can say words about grief for sure. But yeah, thinking that it can also feel with you is there's something not so comfy about that.
And I think especially vulnerable people, it's been, there's been research, and it's once again totally opposite sides of the scale. Where somebody's lonely, it might give them comfort. It might give them, what's the word? You see, my imperfections are coming through. I can't think of the word. Um, Company. On the one side, so that's a positive. But on the other side, there are the dangers where there's a dependency. And the same with the coach bot. We know that our aim as coaches is for our clients to become autonomous, to that eventually we shouldn't be a crutch for them. We're there to help them find their solutions. Where's that line between dependency and autonomy with a machine?
Fascinating questions, and we'll see where it goes. Um, what guidance would you have for coaches around any of this values and ethics and how to use, how to not?
So I think first look at what resonates with yourself. Where are your own values? What is important for you as a coach? I think that is the first step. And then to look at, if you're an ICF coach, for example, look at what the ICF guidelines say. Look at your legislative guidelines. We know we've got an AI Act in Europe, for example. That's very broad. But in terms of GDPR and safety and security, those things all apply. But if you are aware of your own values first and what's important to you, you will know what to look out for in whatever systems you are planning on using. Just do thorough background checks, check the privacy, security, anything else. And I think also with your client, make sure it's stipulated in your contract how, when, and you're going to use the AI, and if the client can withdraw or is in agreement with that. I think those are the important things. Is there anything else that you think that might be important? I know you haven't done the research, but as a coach, trainer, and facilitator, assessor, I mean, what would you? Is there anything you would add?
Hmm. Well, it's interesting. Even while you're talking, I'm like, oh, I'm having all these ideas of how I can use it for some of my training things, and so I tend to get excited about anything new and be interested and want to just give it a try and explore. Um, and at the same time, there's this just awareness. Like I don't want to become a complete AI cheerleader by any means. And in fact, my hope is that the capabilities of AI will be shocking enough that coaches will go the other direction. Like, why not let AI do all of the perfect questions and the perfect language and never stumble over its words and say, and I wonder if, blah, blah, blah. You know, the things that we're trying to kind of cut out of our language and say it really, the powerful questions. And why not let AI do some of that more? And maybe we coaches can really stand our ground in our humanness and go walk the Camino with somebody and coach while walking or coach in nature or like really take our humanness to the most human we can get. Maybe is where I'm feeling it for me.
I love that idea because as we were talking, also, I was thinking it's really depends on the coach and the client. And my favorite way of coaching, of course, is in person walking, but we know that's not always possible. It's almost impossible nowadays to have the in person sessions. And um, so we have to look at what resonates and when. And I think there's a time and a place for everything. And it's back to what I said before about the training. Maybe you have part, part some sessions in person and you have some pre-recorded trainings. I'm talking about training now, not coaching, but you have pre-recorded. And if you sort of compare that, the pre-recorded part is the AI doing the coaching and the in-person is where the actual human coach shows up. And these hybrid scenarios do work. And others just say, no, I only want the human. And other people might,
Even what we're doing right now, you and me, like we're here on Riverside SM, the Awaken podcasting studio, and you're at your house and I'm in my house, and we're having a different kind of experience than we have when we're both cuddled up on my couch or when I'm having tea at your dining room table. That's a different kind of relationship that we have. Um, and our next vacations in Spain together and things like that, which I need to just keep on bringing up randomly from time to time.
yes, absolutely. I love it. I love it. Yes, it's true because our in-person meetings are very different to our Zoom meetings. and it's what you bring.
Yeah, and it's just good to notice that and what do we want? I mean, when I first started coaching, I was living in Nairobi and I had this beautiful garden and a hammock and an outdoor table and a couple of very comfy chairs inside my office. And people would come, they would drive usually an hour and a half, 2 hours just to get across Nairobi. And then we'd have a really spacious 90-minute session. And afterwards, I'd say, take the rest of the morning, take the rest of the afternoon. You are free to lie in the grass on a blanket and journal or take an extra half hour in the hammock looking up at the trees while you process what we've talked about. And that was such a beautiful experience. And even then, over time, some people would be like, oh, can I just call you on Skype back in the days of Skype? I don't have 3 driving hours and 3 hours to be in your garden today. And there are different sessions. You can actually get a lot done in a lot less time if somebody just really needs a spacious thinking environment. You can do more in 57 minutes on Skype in a certain way than 3 hours in a hammock, but it's a very different kind of thinking that happens, I would say.
Totally. A different experience altogether,
Hmm.
different thinking.
Fran, we always finish this podcast with our question about spirituality because everything we do at Awaken is really about depth of listening. We train our coaches to listen not only for behaviors and feelings and thoughts, but all the way deep down to the person's purpose and mission, what kind of world they want to create. So, with all of the AI chatbot research that you've done and who you are as a person, what kind of world would you love to create?
Think I would like a world where we are still true to ourselves and in touch with our humanness, all our mistakes, all our imperfections, our feelings, our intuitions, not to ever lose that. So whether we choose to augment our services with AI coach bots or not, the important thing for me is to always remember yourself, deep within yourself, who you are, your values, what drives you, and be conscious of your feelings, intuitions, thoughts, creativity, all these things that make you you. I think that is the most my message.
Thank you so much for being with us, Fran. It's always a joy.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Christy.